Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, or whenever it is that you're seeing today's episode. I'm Jonathan Bengal here, live in my studio here in Phoenix, Arizona for Naked Tax Talk Babies, where we bear down to the naked truth about our personal lives, our business lives, and our monetary lives. And the reason why I say this and what I know to be true is that when we improve upon the self, our businesses also improve, and our businesses are just a mere reflection of who we are. And of course, our money also increases because that is a reflection of our businesses and of ourselves. And when you work with someone like me, an IRS enrolled agent, also known as your business profit tax coach extraordinaire, we help you to legally shred and mitigate your taxes so that you can keep it, which is exactly what the IRS wants for you if you're self-employed, so that you can reinvest it back into your business and create the life that you want to live, to have the freedom, to have the enjoyments of what life has to provide you. And I have to tell you something, I get asked this a lot. Jonathan, why do you do your show naked? Well, here's why. Nakedness for me equals courage. It equals vulnerability. It equals the ability to speak freely and openly about what crosses our minds. And remembering this, as RuPaul says, we are all born naked, but the truth is that we're all born naked and the rest is just drag. So I have a really exciting guest that I'm going to bring on. He is super sexy. You've seen the previews on my Facebook page. Let me tell you, woo! And I've had some hot, sexy guests on my show, I will admit. And he's one of the top, woo! But we're going to talk about why I have to go buy health insurance now because he's so sexy, because he's about to break the internet. So we're going to talk about health insurance and how we can utilize health insurance in our businesses and actually legally write it off, including the premiums and the cost. And that's really what we're going to talk about, and just have a lot of fun and really talk about the freedom of business. And in fact, he's actually enjoying freedom right now. So without much further ado, I'm going to bring on Cameron Bodrero. Welcome to Naked Tax Talk.
Thank you, Jonathan. That's probably one of the best intros I think I've ever had given for me anywhere. So I'll definitely keep this one tucked away in the files for build up my confidence a little bit.
Absolutely, man. You know, with confidence comes the power to be the person that we were born to be and to shine as that shining, bright, sexy light that I know I am, and I sure in the hell know you are. So, so Cameron, tell us a little about who you are and what is it that you do, and then maybe share with us what you used to do, which will explain the sexiness.
Yeah, so born and raised in Mesa, Arizona. Not here right now, but born and raised in Mesa, Arizona. Always grew up just wanting to be a part of the community, be someone who people could look to for help. It actually led me into a career in law enforcement, which I did for nearly a decade.
Wow.
At that point in time, I decided to, take a little break and get out of it and go into corporate sales. Corporate sales was good, but it just you miss out on that personal touch of being able to help people out. So after a year of that, I said, you know what, I want to get back to that personal touch. How can I do that? Had a friend introduce me to health insurance, and now I get to the joys of walking people through the confusing world of health insurance, finding a great plan for them, and helping them, feel a little bit more at ease walking away. I've had some people transition from corporate into entrepreneurship, give them that ease of knowing like, hey, I'm covered with health insurance. I can go into an entrepreneurship. I don't need that corporate health plan. And just be able to work with people, help them achieve their dreams, and help them feel comfortable with having that health insurance aspect covered with everything.
That is so awesome. So, all right. So did you always wanted to be a policeman when you were young?
Oh yeah. Ever since I remember when I was like 5 years old in kindergarten, I had this little toy police motorcycle officer. I think I was just always fascinated by him. Just always gravitated that way, and never really wavered off of that. It was always, police was always my number one choice of career path I wanted to go down.
That is so awesome. And so now, of course, you're dealing with health insurance. So why, out of all the insurances, life insurance and accidental and death and blah, 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 why go with health?
I think for me, it was, you meet a lot of property and casualty insurance, meet a lot of life insurance people. I had never really met anybody who did health insurance. And there's so many options out there that people just don't realize are out there. And so they just think they're stuck with the expensive plan that doesn't cover anything. So when I learned that, oh, wait, there are other options out there, I wanted to be a part of that ability to educate people on that and to help them find something that works better for them. So they're more excited about their health insurance plan instead of just cursing it because it's a monthly expense that they feel like they get nothing out of.
That, it's interesting you say that, a monthly expense that they get nothing out of it until they need it.
Yep. that's the only.
Go ahead.
That's what health insurance is for. It's, you hope you never use it, but you need to have it when that big event happens and you don't want to be stuck without a pocket cost on it.
That's interesting. So one of my friends, Mika, I know you watch my show a lot, so shout out to you. Mika, she's a communications coach out of Calgary, Canada. And we talk all the time, every day, almost, it feels like, and I love it. And so I hope you don't mind, Mika, but I'm going to share our story that you told me about. Actually, I witnessed it, so to speak. And so she calls me up. And she says, oh, I burned my leg really bad. I think she spilled some water on her leg. She was cooking, and I think it sprinkled on her leg. And she goes, what should I do? What should I do? Should I put some cream on it? Should I go to the doctors? And I forgot for a moment that she's Canadian and I'm an American, right? And so I said, I hope you don't mind, but you're talking to an American. And so as Americans, we don't go to doctors and hospitals and emergency rooms unless like you're going to die, because otherwise the bill after the fact's going to kill you. So I'm like, instead we come up with remedies at home, like wrap the leg, put some butter on it. I know you're not supposed to, or put the, whatever the treatments are, the old wives' tales, right, to get the treatment. And then I said, wait a minute, you're Canadian. Like, don't you guys have universal health there? And she goes, yeah, we do. And I said, so why aren't you going to go to the urgent care wherever you could go? And she's like, yeah, I guess you're right. I guess I'm going to go just to be safe. I'm like, yeah. You're talking to an American. We will do everything in our power to not go to a doctor because we don't want a surprise almost a surprise tax bill. Well, that's kind of what it's like. We don't want a surprise hospital bill.
Oh yeah, no. And it's amazing how many people I talk to in this where they're like, we never go to the doctor. Never. We will not go to the doctor. And it's one of those things where it's almost a badge of honor here in America of like, I don't go to the doctor. I don't need to go to the doctor. And a lot of it is that expense behind it. If you go to the doctor, they find something, now you got an expense that you're going down. How are you going to cover it? Does your insurance cover it? If your insurance does cover it, how much of it does it cover? It's a long, dark, scary road. So it's easier to just say, I'm not going to go to the doctor. Hope that there's nothing wrong with me.
That is the unfortunate truth. It really is, because we experienced that. I experienced it firsthand. That's the truth. It's interesting. So let me ask about insurance. So with health insurance, what are the common confusion that you hear a lot from people when you try to talk to them about health insurance?
Probably the biggest, I guess, when you say confusion, I go to kind of misconception people have, and that is, there's one option. I've got my plan that is, the marketplace plan, my work plan, whatever it is, that is my one option. I have no other option as far as health insurance. And I think that's your biggest confusion is your work healthcare plan could not work for you. And you don't have to stick to that. There's other options you can go out and research and find, or come to me. And that's what I do is I help you find those. If you're an entrepreneur, the marketplace isn't the only place for insurance. It's a good place to go, especially if you have some major pre-existing conditions, stuff like that. But it is extremely expensive. So if you are of good health, then you could look at an alternative plan. Why not look at an alternative plan? So I think the biggest misconception is there's one plan. That's the only thing that's available to me. And outside of that, I'm out of luck and there's nothing else I can do.
So explain to me, because I'm going to ask you some questions like the common guy over here who, has health insurance, luckily, and doesn't quite understand all the stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So My confusion actually, so personal. So we are naked. We're talking about, so we're naked already. So why not? So let me ask you this. So my confusion, I think a lot of us have this confusion, and that is we see this thing called like you got to meet your deductible first. Like what the hell is that?
So deductible is a way for the insurance companies to basically have you help pay for your medical costs. The higher deductible you have, usually the lower cost your plan is going to be. But basically that is you are paying out of pocket before the insurance is going to cover something. That's why when you walk into, personal experience for me, had a pacemaker surgery about a year ago, a little over a year ago.
You had a pacemaker surgery?
Yep, got it right.
Ooh.
Here, you can see it underneath the skin there. So,
oh wow, oh wow.
At the time, I was on a corporate healthcare plan, but I basically walked in. They said, "Okay, your deductible is $1,500. The surgery we're estimating is going to cost this much, and you owe an additional, I think it was 20% of that. Before we'll even touch you, you got to meet that deductible, pay that co-insurance." And it's $3,000 out of pocket. So your deductible is basically the insurance saying, hey, you're going to pay up front before we kick in and pay. And there's some plans where, your deductibles aren't going to be that big of an issue. You've got some plans where you literally have to pay everything out of pocket until you reach it before the insurance is going to do anything. So the deductible is a big part of it, and especially where it has coverage at. Because same thing, you go in for that surgery, your doctor's in network, the hospital's in network, but your anesthesiologist suddenly isn't in network. Not only is your insurance not going to cover that, but the cost of that anesthesiologist doesn't go toward your deductible. So a lot of your deductibles, they have to be met by going in network. So if you've got your doctor's out of network, all the costs are going to be out of pocket, and it's not going to go towards it.
It's interesting you say that. So I had surgery back. I want to say it was 2011, 12-ish, around. I can't remember now. My husband would know. But we had decided one year to take an 8,000-mile road trip across the country. And we did a huge loop. So we started in Phoenix, and we drove all the way to Florida on I-10. And then we went up, I think it's Highway 90. It's like an older highway up along the coast, the Carolinas, the Virginias, all up there. And then we ended up in New Jersey. And it was 4th of July weekend. We ended up in New Jersey. And when we crossed the border, I couldn't drive because they're crazy drivers. No offense to my New Jerseyans out there. I married one. But I crossed the river, Delaware River, and they're honking their horn because it was a construction site. And I slowed down a little bit, and I got the fingers and I got the honking horns and the blinking lights. And I the stress was like, I can drive in California. You guys are more passive. I'm down with that. But the other ones are like, honk, honk, get out of the way, fucker, blah, blah, blah. So I pulled the car over and I'm stressed. I'm like, I can't drive. I can't do it. And my husband's so chill and relaxed. And he's like, it's New Jersey. And I'm like, then you drive. So anyway, so we're in New Jersey, and his this is a great story. His mother, his grandmother invites us over. We're going to stay with them for, a day or two and then continue on our journey. We're supposed to go to Montreal and then through Canada and stuff. Well, anyways, so we get there. And she's serving us lasagna, an 8-cheese layer lasagna, and I'm extremely lactose intolerant. And so is my husband. But, my mother taught me well, and you just eat anyways, and you accept people's food, right? Because it's what the gracious thing to do. So I sat there and I ate the lasagna, knowing I'd pay the price later. That's okay. And that night, I'm in bed, and I am in dire pain. I mean, it is coming from like my lower left side, and I'm just like, I thought it was gas, so I'm trying to pass gas and everything, and nothing's working. And so it was about 6 a.m, and I said to Blaine, I said, I can't do this anymore. I got to go to the hospital. I think it's more severe. And so he drove me to the hospital where he was born out of, which was really cool. And we went like 5-minute wait in the ER, basically. And we go to the back, and they said, yep, you've got appendicitis, and it's about to burst. And so we're going to get you into OR like right now. And so I'm a little fatalistic. So I'm like, here's the passwords to everything. And here's the, this and that and la, la, la. And I had the surgery, and I got my appendix removed. And so I spent my 4th of July weekends with my own firecrackers through morphine and everything while while you're healing, right? And so the trip, we ended up moving on. We went through Pennsylvania, where I got to tell the story a little bit more. So we end up in Ohio with a cousin of ours, a cousin of mine. And as we're leaving, she says, I want you to take all of these fresh peppermint from my garden. And we had no idea what we're going to do with it. But again, we're being nice, courteous. We'll take the peppermint. And this is how universe works, by the way, people. This is how universe works. So we take the peppermint, we put it in the car, and we continue driving. And all of a sudden, we get to Pennsylvania. No, sorry, it was Pennsylvania first. I apologize. So Pennsylvania, we're driving, and we hear this clunk. And out of the rearview mirror, we see what looks like a metal part falling from the bottom of the car. And what it was one of the water pumps for the Prius. I drive a Prius, so one of my old Prius, and it has 2 water pumps. So one of the water pumps falls out and it just collapses. So like in a movie, you can see the Toyota dealership in the distance, like you can see it. So we like wheel this car to the Pennsylvania, wherever we were. And while we're there, all the rooms are sold because everyone's fracking over there and there's no place to stay. And we finally get this last come, first little tiny, like a twin bed hotel room and rent it for a few days while the car's being repaired. And just like in the movies, it's 3 days to get the part and get repaired. So I lose the damn pump in Pennsylvania. So we get to Ohio. We leave Ohio. My cousin says, here's the peppermint. We take the peppermint and we get on the road. And now we're on this huge, massive highway heading into Chicago. I think it's 12 lanes wide. And all of a sudden, I just feel warmth on the bottom of my legs. And my brain is not communicating with my stomach. Stomach isn't communicating with the brain. And all I know is I'm feeling warmth coming from the bottom of my pants. And what it was is my body was just releasing everything on the insides of my stomach. And so I start shouting, pull the car over, pull the car over. And so he pulls the car over. I jump out. And as I'm jumping out, I'm pulling down my shorts. So now I'm bare ass on the highway. And I'm having like Hershey squirts like coming out, right? Because I'm getting rid of everything. And the smell was so devastating that we took the peppermint that my cousin gave us and we crushed it up and we were huffing it to help us with it. And then we got all cleaned up and we get in the car. Cars are honking, burp, 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 because I'm like about naked on the damn highway, dealing with all this. And we get back in the car, and as we're driving, the car goes boop, 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 and it's letting us know that the keys are no longer in the vicinity of the vehicle because they're back inside the pants that are now covered with all of my remains in the back. So we had to do like a U-turn. We went back. And so now I jokingly say there's got to be a tree growing right there, where I left all of my deposits, so to speak. And I had to dig through and get the keys and everything. So we continue on the journey and we end up home. Now that long ass story was all just to tell you about the surprise bill I received from the anesthesiologist. And it was like $1,500. And I wasn't prepared for that. That's kind of like doing business, by the way, and not planning for your taxes in the future. I'm just saying. And so all of a sudden, I get this bill for $1,500 from an anesthesiologist, and it said out of network, and the insurance that I had, because I had the time I was working, did not cover the anesthesiologist. So exactly what you just said is exactly true. It's the guy that knocks you out is the one that is not covered by insurance.
I do believe they've recently made in some legislation that says that that's no longer allowed. Like if they're going to be in the hospital, they have to accept the same insurance. I believe that came out, hopefully, because that's happened to a lot of people actually, is that same thing. The anesthesiologist, it's always the anesthesiologist too. It's never anybody else. It's always the anesthesiologist is never in network for people when they have these surgeries. So it's always that surprise bill.
It is exactly. And it's like doing business without working with someone like me, a tax planner that can help guide you. It's the same thing. You just don't know what's going to happen. So, all right. So when it comes to health insurance, tell us a little bit about, so there's personal health insurance, which doesn't help us as entrepreneurs. But for the most part, you do have like policies that cover employees and the employers and stuff like that. So let's talk about that, because don't be surprised. We're going to come back and talk about the personal health insurance and how we can deduct that in the business. But first, I want to talk about the most obvious one, which is like group policy health insurance. So do you offer those types of plans for group policies?
Yeah, so I have a couple different options for group policies. And that's the nice thing. Again, there's always options. So some of the plans I have can be individuals for business owners, or we could do a group policy. The thing you run into with group policies is lots of times, again, you're dealing with if you got a business that's 10 people and you want to do a group policy, 8 of them have to sign up. Well, if 6 of them have family plans and you only want to get 4 of them, you're going to start running into some issues with group policies. But that's, again, it's all by case by case basis. But yeah, we have plans that really range from your standard. We can quote you, your standard marketplace typical plan to alternative plans to even short-term plans. If you want to offer workers a short-term plan because they're only going to be, they're only going to be with you for a year or whatever it might be, we have those options as well. There's a lot of reasons why I'll usually say don't do short-term plans, but if you're hiring contractors for a year and you want to give them insurance at a time, that would be like a really good option for it. So there, again, going back to that, people don't always know what the options are. There's a lot of options when it does come to group plans that we can play with things, make things work. Some of the plans I can do group plans and get you out of COBRA, which is a big one for employers. Yeah. They don't want to worry about that on the back end. So yeah, there's a lot of different things that working with a broker like me, that's one of the benefits is we can play around with things and get you the best option for all of your employees where you're able to offer them those benefits, but also for you, it kind of minimizes some of the negative things that come with offering health insurance as a group plan.
That is so cool. And that's the most obvious one. So the way I would structure this, if someone came to me and said, hey, I need a group health insurance policy for the business, my first question I'm going to ask them is, are you a corporation? Because as a corporation, and I happen to be the owner, let's say I happen to be the owner, the shareholder, and I'm in a C corporation, and I have health insurance, a group health insurance policy, my corporation can pay for the premiums, and we just consider it what we call a fringe benefit. And so as a result, again, you might have the employee picking up some of the tab. And of course, you're going to have the employer contributing to part of the tab. But what's nice about this is that the employee gets this wonderful benefit of health insurance, and it's tax-free to them, basically. And the employer gets a benefit in that they get to deduct the premiums, thereby reducing their corporate income, right? And thereby reducing their taxes. And the reason for this is because Uncle Sam, he's very clear about this. Because even though he doesn't want to take care of all of us as a right to insurance, that's my philosophy, he says we'll place the burden on the employer. And because we're placing the burden on the employer, we're going to allow them to deduct that so that way they can get the benefit and thereby pay less tax, which therefore they have more money in their bank account to pay towards the insurance premiums. Makes total sense, doesn't it?
I love how it works.
So that's what happens when you're a C corporation. But let's talk about 99.9% of the entrepreneurs out there that we would call a sole proprietor, or maybe if they're an LLC and they have no other partners, we'd call them a single member LLC. So the question is how do we pay for the premiums inside of our business that are normally not allowed? This is the law. It's typically not allowed. It's a no, can't happen. So Cameron, do you, out of curiosity, now I'm gonna put you on the spotlight if I may, but what are your thoughts about that? Do you think that's possible to pay off your premiums through your business and still be able to deduct it on your return? Have you ever heard of any of this?
I've known people have done it before. I'm not sure all of the ins and outs of it, but yeah, I know it's possible. Anytime you're a business owner, that is one good thing about Uncle Sam is he loves business owners and he's going to help them out. So there's usually some sort of loophole. But yeah, as a tax guy, I'm sure you're about to school me on exactly how that happens.
School you. Oh, because you're so sexy, I got to tell you the how to. I have to admit, when something's sexy to me, I tend to open my mouth and I tend to share a lot of information. So here's how this works. So thank you. So my viewers, thank Cameron. He's so sexy. Like, I'm going to share some information. So here's how it works. Ready? So When you are a sole proprietor or single member filing on a Schedule C, Form 1040, okay? And by the way, my lawyers have always told me, so I got to tell you again, I am not giving you tax advice. This is entertainment, and you can go and look it up yourself. You can talk to me personally. You can join my program called Rapid Tax Savings Formula, where we actually go into details of these types of deductions inside of my program. So with that, as a shameless plug, and I'll do it again later on, but here's the thing, right? So this is part of it. So I'm not exactly sure what year it was created. So if you're a tax professional and you're watching my show right now and you want to help me out, please put the year down if you want when this law was enacted. But it falls under what we call Section 105. So we hear this word, Section 105 plans. You'll hear this thrown out there by professionals. Section 105, Section 105. And people like yourself who work in the health industry should know that it falls under Section 105. I say that's an easy way to help you sell your plans, right? It's tax deductible, but you got to have this in place, Section 105. So Section 105 is a complicated law, and I'm not going to go into the details. It's not what we're here for, but I'm going to give you the highlight. And here's the highlight. The highlight is this. Normally, health insurance premiums for a self-employed individual are not deductible. They're not an expense. Therefore, I cannot reduce my taxable income. It is typically what we call above the line deduction on your 1040, which is reducing your overall taxable income by a percentage. That's what that's doing. So here's the loophole. You create something called, you tap into something called a medical expense reimbursement plan, short for a MERP. So you hear this word too, MERP. So MERPs fall into Section 105. So for us, these solopreneurs out there, all right, what happens is you create a MERP plan. It's going to have all these documentations, all these legal documents are going to tell you who's going to benefit. So I can actually discriminate. So in business, we discriminate all the time, in case you did not know this, Cameron, but in business, we discriminate. And one of the discriminations that we discriminate is how long has the employee worked with us? How long are they going to work with us? What's the maximum benefit I'm going to pay them? And what are their roles? Are they part-time, full-time? So when you are self-employed, you're not an employee by the law. The law is very clear. You're not an employee when you are a sole proprietor or a single member LLC. So you are prohibited from cutting W-2 wages to yourself. So here's what the law says. Well, what about hiring your spouse? So you hire the spouse, and now you offer your spouse the health insurance. And so then what happens is the business turns around and reimburses the health insurance premium. So you, the individual, is going to pay for them out of your own pocket. And then you're going to give the receipt to your company. By the way, my class, Rapid Tax Savings Formula, we talk about how to separate ourselves from our business. And so one of these techniques is like this. Over here, I'm going to go, okay, I just paid my health insurance policies. I'm Jonathan. I just paid my health insurance policies, and my premiums are $400 a month. So I cut a check for $400. Then I turn around and I come to JB Financial, my other company, and I go like this, JB, I need to be reimbursed for my health insurance policy. JB goes, oh, yes, we have the MERP documents right here that clearly says that this is your maximum benefit. This is how often we're going to pay you, and this is the amount. So absolutely, $400, that fits in your benefit amounts. Here you go. We cut you a check, $400, and I give it to the employee. And what's beautiful is that in the employee situation, they don't pick it up. They don't pick it up for Social Security and Medicare tax. It's exempt from FICA tax. And the self-employed individual themselves, if they have their own insurance policy in their own name, they too are also going to get the benefit, and they're going to be subject. It doesn't get, no, sorry, lies. Sole proprietor, you get to hire the spouse. That's the loophole. And so they don't have to pay FICA tax. They just pay ordinary income tax. And so we tack it on. Nope, they don't. It's fully exempt all around the board. So it's all tax-free to the employee. And that's what's key here. Now, however, when you, and I'm not an expert in this. In fact, I'm trying to get a guest on my show. Her name is Cassandra. Cassandra, I know you watch my show. I want to get her on here because she's an expert in this. This is what she does. She writes these policies up. So I'd rather not kind of say too much about it, other than this is the mechanics. You hire your spouse or you hire your children and you offer them health insurance. And then you basically reimburse yourself through the company for those premiums. And now it becomes an expense on the books as an employee benefit. Now, here's what's really cool about MERPs is that I can also deduct. Are you ready, women? My women out there that I work with a lot? Finally, after how many years? You can now deduct feminine hygiene as a medical related expense. So now all of a sudden you can go to the store when you get feminine products, deductible as a medical necessary expense. You make sure you get reimbursed for that. I pay for out-of-pocket expenses like co-pays for my medication or my doctor visits or my specialist. I go back to the company and say, please reimburse me. If I pay for non-network medical costs, same thing. Vision insurance, dental insurance, short-term insurance, long-term insurance, disability, short-term, et cetera. All those insurance premiums, which are normally non-deductible, become deductible under Section 105 through a MERP. Now, where it gets convoluted, all right? So again, it's where it gets convoluted, is if I shift a client from a Schedule C and I turn them into an S corporation for purposes of taxation, all right, the rules change a little bit. And the rules say, well, now that I'm an S Corp owner, shareholder, I am actually now required to pay myself a minimum compensation to operate my business. So right away, a lot of people think, oh, I got to pay myself a lot in wages, W-2 wages, as an employee under an S corporation. Well, compensation does not mean dollar for dollar wages. It means things like health insurance benefits. It means things like my use of my corporate car. It means all kinds of other things other than wages. So Section 105 gets employed inside the S corporation as long as I'm the sole shareholder. I can't have any others. And as long as I don't have a group policy in place, all right, that's also key. So it's still an individual health policy. I, the shareholder, am still going to pay for those health insurance premiums out of my own personal pocket. I'm going to have the MERP documents all wrapped up again, right, unsigned and dated. And then every month when I have to pay for all my medical costs, I give my own company a little dog book that says the date, who I paid, when I paid, what the services were for, and how much. And then the employer, which is me, cuts a payroll check for the same amount of money that I'm being asked to be reimbursed for. That value includes his health insurance premiums, right, will now become fully deductible as a business-related expense, which normally it is not. And now all I have to do is add that value to my W-2 wages. All right. So it's a beautiful thing. And now I don't have to pay FICA tax because it's exempt from Social Security and Medicare. It's going to increase my W-2 wages as part of my compensation package. But that's okay. I'm not too worried about that because through careful planning, we can make sure it's the right amount for you to pay your fair amount of taxes. So then what happens is come time to file your taxes, you tell Uncle Sam, I, the shareholder and the employee, paid myself my insurance premium. So if I do 4,000, let's make it easy. 4 times 12 is 36. 36,000. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Yeah, because it's 45. No, 60, 56,000, $5,600. So I say $5,600 is what I paid myself in reimbursement for my health insurance policies. And Uncle Sam's like, great. And did you deduct that as a employee benefit or technically W-2 wages? Yes, we did, Uncle Sam. Cool. And then here's what's really cool. On my personal tax return, my 1040, I'm going to indicate that I had self-employed health insurance premiums that I paid for, and I'm going to be allowed to have, and I'm going to stick that on my Schedule A if I itemize my deductions. thereby further reducing my income even more. So it's a double win-win. Now, if I'm in a group policy as an S corporation, all right, here's what happens. I changed the plan a little bit called an ERISA, and it still falls under Section 105. The difference is that I'm not going to reimburse medical costs anymore from the employee. It's going to be the employer that's going to just take the deduction directly, and we still have to add the value to a more than 2% shareholders' W-2 wages and pick it up as W-2 wages on their personal tax return. Whew, that was complicated. That was confusing. But Cameron, does that make sense?
Oh, it makes tons of sense. And that's exactly why I tell my entrepreneur clients, get yourself a good tax guy who can understand all of this stuff, because I just tell them, I'm like, I know there's a way for this to work. I'm not going to be able to explain it all. Get yourself a good tax guy to be able to help you out, because all those things, it plays a role in it. It sounds complicated, but I'm sure you know it's probably a lot easier than it sounds to set all of that up. And once it's up and running, you're getting that tax deduction and benefiting you on that side, and you get your health insurance to cover you for any unexpected medical costs.
And that's actually true. So we don't actually implement those for our clients. We just advise them. So we say, hey, listen, how much money? This is a question we always ask our clients. How much money are you spending out of pocket for medical care costs? And so, most people say, 6,000, 7,000. And that's just your copays and medications and doctor visits and the chiropractor and the acupuncturist, right? And then you say, okay, but how much are your insurance premiums? And they go, oh, well, $700 a month or whatever, and I cover my whole family. So then what we say is, well, let's come up with a plan utilizing Section 105, create a MERP or an ERISA or some other plan that's inside of Section 105, and then let's shift what is typically personal and shift it into a business-related expense utilizing tax law to its fullest advantage. And again, I'm not purporting here to be an expert in Section 105. That's my friend Cassandra. She'll come on my show. She'll share more. But what we would do is we'd say, go talk to Cassandra, and she'll set you up with all the legalese and explain even more than I can. But it's even that. And I think this is the truth here, Cameron. All I need to know is just enough to know to advise my clients. And you said the word earlier, that it is possible. And that's what we need. Is it possible? And then what we have to do as the business owner is keep really good damn documentation so we don't violate the rules. We just need to make sure that we can say, is it ordinary? Is it ordinary for me to provide healthcare insurance to my employees? Yeah. And then, is it necessary? Yeah. A healthy employee makes you money. And Uncle Sam is all about you making money. And this is something that we do talk about in my show, Rapid Tax Savings Formula. And we help you to track that so that you can take full advantage of that in your business. So Cameron, did that sort of answer your question about how we pay for stuff out of our businesses for healthcare?
Oh yeah, that actually it opened my eyes up even a little bit more, because like I said, I had heard some of this, I had known some of it, but yeah, I believe it was the MERP. That's actually the first time I've heard that term. So that is definitely a big help and something I can throw out there to my clients too, of like, hey, look into this, figure it out, make it work with your healthcare, and save you some money on the back end.
Exactly. And it's so complex. And tax is complex, man. I mean, healthcare insurance is freaking complex for me. And that's because I don't deal in that, right? Some people who don't do taxes don't understand it either, right? I get it. It's complex. And the reason why there's all these loopholes, just like in health insurance, isn't there?
Oh, yeah.
What this condition must be met for this to kick in, or this must be done for this. And that's the same thing with these MERPs I'm talking about in these Section 105s. There's all these little moving parts that we got to just know. I thought you had another question. Do you have another? By the way, if you are watching the show live, please feel free to post your questions in the chat box. I know I got some viewers out there. Feel free to chat your box, and Cameron will answer some questions. But in the meantime, Cameron, I know you had another question. Do you remember what your question was?
I did. I'm trying to remember what it is. Let me actually, I know I'm really bad at remembering things. So let me look it up,
too.
because I purposely write these things down because I know I'm like, in the moment, I could be thinking about it 20 minutes ago. And in the moment, I am going to forget so bad. And it is
Oh
going
yeah.
to just like, I'm just there. It's just the way I roll. So let me
Truth
pull
be
that
told, I
up.
deleted some of that. So I'm like trying to pull it up. I was like, okay, I know I got it here on my calendar. By the way, this is real life right now. See, this is what. But while we fill up this time, tell us why you're so sexy and you have light shining on you, even though you live in Phoenix or in Mesa, Arizona.
Yeah. So I am, my wife and I, mainly my wife. My wife is the one who plans most of these things. My wife and I planned this trip to Hawaii before COVID was a thing. So we had tickets to Hawaii. We were going to bring our 3-year-old with us and everything like that. And then obviously COVID happened, but luckily the resort we were at did open up a month ago. So I am in beautiful Honolulu, Hawaii at the Disney Alani Resort.
Nice.
And so my wife and I, we actually, because of all the COVID restriction, everything, didn't feel comfortable bringing our 3-year-old with us. So she's with grandma and grandpa, getting spoiled, having the time of her life back in Arizona. But my wife and I are here in Honolulu and just enjoying some sun. And I'm finally trying to get a little bit of a tan going. So
Yeah, because you know what? Let's be real here. Arizona heat is different than Arizona sun is different than I can imagine than Hawaiian sun.
yeah. Oh yeah. It's kind of funny because it's only 82, but I'm 2 minutes into the Hawaiian sun, I'm getting baked. I don't get out in the sun a lot, so that's why you're already seeing me turning like a cherry tomato. But yeah, it's definitely, it hits you a little bit different than the Arizona sun, even when it's 110 in Arizona. So
That's true. That's true. Today, actually, it was raining. It broke a 110-day record,
So
a 100-day streak. So we got some rain today. It's gorgeous. Gorgeous. Yes, I know. Only, I think for us that live in the desert, I think we get super excited when it rains because 110 days of no rain at all, like that's just cray. Okay, so you actually did ask a question, and it had to do about tax planning. Does that trigger your memory?
yeah, so I just found it. I mean, obviously, I work with entrepreneurs who've been in it for a while. I'm now talking to them about healthcare, bringing up, hey, you can do some tax deductions on this type of stuff. Obviously, the sooner the better to get a tax plan together. But when is like the ideal time? Like, when should people be like, this is the hard line? You need to have one in place by this time in your business once it's up and going.
That's a great question. So when should entrepreneurs start tax planning? All right. First things first, I forgot to mention this. MERPs are non-retroactive. So this is important. So unfortunately, if you didn't have a MERP in place this year, there isn't really much you can do for 2020. It'll be more for 2021. That's key. There are some stuff you can do in taxes that allows us to go back in time. For example, with the CARES Act that was created, if we experience what we call a net operating loss, we're going to be allowed to carry that back 2 years. So what we do is we amend the 2 years prior. And then if there's money to be freed up, it will be freed up and give us more money in our pockets. And then we can apply whatever's left over into future years when we have profits. So this is a really cool little loophole I just shared with everybody right now. And for those of you who don't watch my show to the end, you just missed out. I'm just saying. So anyways, but what I'll say is when is a good time to tax plan? The time to plan, okay, let's be real. The majority of us who wake up and go, I'm gonna be in business for myself because I'm tired of working for the man, all right, or the woman, whoever you work for, and you're just done. Most of us do not have the capital, the money to invest in experts like myself. That is the unfortunate truth, but it is a truth. Unless you go raise the capital. So you go create a corporation or a partnership and you basically tell people, here's my business plan and will you invest in my vision? And when they do, right, they're going to give you what they call capital and they're going to get something for it. Maybe it's a loan or maybe it's equity or it's something like that. But for the most part, most of us like me who basically started my company years ago on just $100, $100 isn't going to bring you to a tax planner. I'll put it that way. So the ideal, if the world was perfect, you would talk to a tax planner before you started your business because we can guide you and make sure that you're hitting and taking advantage of all these deductions that you can truly take advantage of, which is why I wrote my book, The ABCs of Deductions, An Entrepreneur's Guide to Tax Write-Offs, because it's the foundation to having a successful business in your life and mitigating those taxes legally and doing it by tapping into these 26 deductions that I put in my book, which I will put the link here for you guys to go and get it. Right now it's on Amazon, $3.47. So now, from a strategic standpoint, once somebody is once someone nets about $49,000 in net income as a Schedule C filer, they're a little bit late to the game, but it's also a sweet spot to start the planning process. The reason for that is because what's the tax on that is $7,000 in mandatory tax. We call this FICA tax when you're self-employed. We call this self-employed tax, but they're really talking about Social Security and Medicare, which is the employers and the employees portion if you were traditionally employed by somebody. So that's kind of like a sweet spot. But I work with people who make $50,000 a year in gross revenue and they net, $6,000. And we just say, oh, well, let's implement 2-3 new little strategies like hiring your family members to further legally reduce those costs even further, thereby freeing up even more money so they can continue to pump it back into their business. So the reason why people come work with me is so that we can free up the money so that they can turn around and reinvest it back in their business. And that's the sole purpose of why you work with a tax planner. If your purpose is because I want to buy a brand new car, okay, well, we could probably put a plan for that. But if my purpose was to buy me a badass new like Gucci bag, like not much I can do for that. I mean, that's not a tax plan. Maybe so. Actually, I lied. Maybe there's actually a plan in there too. So anyways, the point is that, we're always it's an easy question, 49,000 net income, but ideally I got people come in, like I said, make $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 in net income and they still invest with us. Now they might not come into what I call my ultimate Bengal experience, but I will probably place them into my rapid tax savings formula where we give them the basics, where we give you the foundation so that what entity choice you should select, because the entity is going to dictate those deductions. Just like I said earlier with health insurance, right? Corporations have a better advantage over the S or the sole proprietorship when it comes to insurance. By the way, don't go just jump into that ship because it sounds cool and it looks sexy, just like Cameron. It's really about you planning it out and making sure that's the right move. The other thing is you also perhaps you learn how to separate yourself from your business. This is key, because unfortunately we weren't born as entrepreneurs in the sense that the moment we're 5 years old, our parents go, you're in business for yourself and these are all the rules and these are the things you got to do and like that's not our lives, right? And so as a result, what happens is we believe fundamentally that we are our businesses and our businesses are us. And there's no separation. Like this lip is JB Financial. But the truth is this lip isn't JB Financial. It's funny because this comes from a Buddhist teaching, which basically says that the ego, the I here, doesn't actually exist. It doesn't exist at all. And we do that by doing a meditation and we say, okay, well, if I look at my hand, is my hand Jonathan? Well, no, it's my hand. Well, is my skin Jonathan? No, it's not Jonathan. So you keep doing this meditation until you get to self-realization, realizing that you don't exist. And it doesn't mean that you don't exist here now. It means you don't exist the way you think you exist. So what I mean by this is if I was permanently an asshole, I would be an asshole every second of my life. Everybody would hate me. I wouldn't have the amount of boyfriends I have and the husband I have. I wouldn't have the amount of experience, right? I just wouldn't. I wouldn't have you here on my show, right? Because I would be a permanent asshole. And then I guess it would belong on the bottom of my body at the end of the day, right? So the reality is that we cannot always be the asshole or constantly changing moment by moment. One day I'm an asshole to somebody. One day I'm an angel to somebody. It's just the nature of life. So this is true of business. The business is just a reflection. It's just an extension of who we are. So I go over this in details in my class. The third thing we talk about are those deductions that we just talked about. health insurance, hiring our family members, so forth and so on, right? So we can get the foundation so that we can make informed decisions. For example, Cameron, now that I know you and that my viewers know you, and they go, man, I really want health insurance next year, right? Now they know that you can turn that into a business related expense, thereby reducing my taxable income, right? Thereby having more money to pay for health insurance. So we talk about those things. And then we talk about ultimately what's the next step. Well, here's the next step. I'm super excited to announce that in January, we're going to create a live 3-day live event. It's a workshop where we're going to teach you how to set up your chart of accounts. We're going to teach you the basic accounting equation that every business owner should at least have an idea about. Just like I have an idea about health insurance. I don't know all the details. That's why I have you, Cameron. I don't know all the details, but I know enough to know that I have a deductible and I have copays, right? So it's teaching you the accounting equation, teaching people what does the balance sheet look like? What does an income statement look like, right? What do those things mean and how does it translate to tax? And giving you this amazing empowerment so that you can continue to live the life that you were born to be. And that is every single business owner was born to be a badass, confident, powerful CEO. And this is what I tell my students, and I share this with you right now. Just because we're small does not mean that we're not powerful. And that's what's important. Just because we look like we're weak does not mean that we're powerful. We're more than that. We are everything we're born to be, beyond that. And so when we can accept that and we can apply it to our taxes and to our financials and to our business, boom, we see the growth. So that's what we're going to be doing. So keep your ears out. I think it's going to be like January 15, 16, 17. Yes, for my marketing experts, I don't have a landing page yet, but we're going to get one. But if you go and you get my book, you might be on my list, and then you'll find out about it when I start launching it. So that's what we're going to do, Cameron. And that's all coming out of my program, Rapid Tax Savings Formula, which is coming out of my book that I wrote, which is coming out of what I do as a tax planner, which is guiding small business owners through the darkness of taxation and shining the light to financial happiness.
It's all connected, all traveling down that same path, helping people save money and really live their dream through their business.
That's
can't
it.
have a business, it can't have a dream if you don't make money.
That's the truth right there. Boom. So with that, we've actually passed a little bit past our 45-minute mark. That's okay. You're sexy. I'll let it slide. So I wanted to ask you, what was your aha moment that you experienced today on my show?
Just that there's a lot more guidance that I can give my own clients as far as how to help them save money with their health insurance. I mean, obviously my goal is to get their premiums down, but even how do I guide them at least into the right direction of setting up some of these tax strategies you talked about so that they can save even more money? Because, you know, small businesses, every dollar matters, and I want to make sure that more dollars go in their pocket at the end of the day. And this definitely, you know, there's a lot more that I can be doing for my clients. And I think that was my biggest aha moment, is there's a lot of ways for them to save money with this.
That's so awesome. And for me, the aha moment was going, I have more options available to me for my health insurance premiums. That was a big eye opener for me. So, any last parting words of wisdom to those out there that are self-employed and dealing with health insurance?
Yeah, just be open to the other options. There are some plans that might seem a little unorthodox, but at the end of the day, they're actually going to give you better coverage than maybe some of the plans you're familiar with. So really explore them, understand what each plan can do for you, and find the best one that fits for you. Don't get stuck in, oh, this is what I'm used to, so I'm just going to stay there. Comfort's our biggest enemy. So explore, figure stuff out. You know, at the end of the day, maybe the plan you have is the best one. Not saying it's not, but there are other options out there. Explore them, figure out what is actually going to work best for you, and be willing to go down that path.
And that's what I'm talking about. And we're showing your phone number now, and I do apologize, but when I repurpose this, don't you worry. For those of you who watch the show post-production, you'll get my little newsletter, and I'll put all this info in there. But right now, if you wanted to call Cameron, Cameron, With health insurance, are you licensed in other states other than Arizona, or are you licensed in Arizona only?
Yeah, so I am in Arizona, California, Utah, Texas, and just added North Carolina to the mix as well.
I'm going to put that in the post right now. So you're licensed in I can spell licensed. Licensed. Okay. So you're licensed in Arizona. Go ahead. Give me the list again.
Arizona, California,
Uh-huh.
Utah,
Mhm.
Texas, and North Carolina.
Fantastic. So if you want to get a hold of Cameron, he can represent you in Arizona, California, Utah, Texas, and North Carolina. And I'm glad you mentioned some of these states because I got lots of clients in these states, which is fantastic. And he can hook you up. He can hook you up with what's best. And as a broker, this is what I like about brokers is that you have your hands on a whole bunch of moving parts that you can truly help the client. And if you're an emailer, I happen to be an emailer, then you can go ahead and email him, cameron.painsurance@gmail.com. Again, that's cameron.painsurance@gmail.com. And again, you send him an email, say hi to him, let him know you saw me on the show. And let's get you guys hooked up with 2021 with health insurance policies. You guys can come talk to me about how we can help you to create those MERPs and under Section 105 so that you can also reimburse yourself for your medical costs and drastically cut your taxes more than likely in half just as a result of just doing those kind of strategies. By the way, if you would like to find out more, you can check out my book, The ABCs of Deductions, An Entrepreneur's Guide to Tax Write-Offs. I will be posting a link here in the comment box, maybe because apparently I closed my other window. Oops. And you can get it. You can get it on Amazon. You can just go to Amazon.com, type in The ABCs of Deductions. But you know what? If you're watching my show right now and you do not have a copy of my book, then have I got a gift for you right now? Cameron, would you like a gift?
I'm always open for gifts.
If you click on this link in the comment box, it will take you to my book and you can have it as a gift from me to you. And if you're a viewer and you're watching the show to the very end and you don't have my book yet, you can get it right there. And apparently, Facebook didn't let me put it on my other pages, but that's okay. It's in the YouTube channel, Facebook, Naked Tax Talks Facebook channel where it matters. So go click on those links. You can get there. Cameron, I'll put it right here in the chat guest box. You can go in there and click on it and get your hands on my book. And pretty soon, I actually just created a workbook to go along with it. So we'll be introducing that probably in the next month or two. And then I also just completed a really awesome PDF called how to legally shred your taxes overnight and radically change your life to financial happiness. And I provide seven strategies that you can implement before the end of the year to shred those taxes even further legally. So that will be coming out in the next month or so, maybe less. So keep your ears and eyes open for that in the emails. But there's a lot of movement happening in my life and here at Naked Tax Talk. So with that, Cameron, thank you so freaking much for being a guest here on my show. Thank you, Mom. I am recognizing you now. You've been seeing my show. She's been watching us live the whole time. So she knows a thing. I have a thing for sexy man. She knows that already. So needless to say, I want to say thank you, Cameron, for being here on my show and being a guest with us. I appreciate you being brave and showing up naked with me. I think this is great to have the camaraderie. I appreciate it. And as a rule, we don't show our nipples because women can't show theirs either. So we don't. But with that, if you are in need of health insurance, again, reach out to Cameron. Give him a call, 480-442-5532. Feel free to reach out to me. Let's get naked at nakedtaxtalk.com. And we can have a chit chat, figure out a best plan for you. Thank you so much. And before I leave, here's something I also learned by being a Buddhist. Emotions are not ours to own. They simply pass through us. And so because of that, we must always remember that when we feel happy, when we feel loved, when we feel accepted, when we feel joy, when we feel abundance, when we feel all these beautiful and amazing sensations that come up for us, we call this positive karma. When all that is ripening, it is not ours to own. We must therefore give it away to someone else who needs it more than us. And we do this very carefully by saying the following: to you, Cameron, and to all my guests, I dedicate my happiness today to all of you. May you be happy. May you be free from suffering. And may you never be separated from your happiness. Have a great night. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Cameron, one more time.
Thanks, Jonathan. Always great to see you and talk to you.
Hold on just a second. Bonus. Bonus. Janet needs health insurance. So, Janet, you know who to call. Sexy Cameron over here. Here's his phone number. One more time. Write this down. 480-442-5532. Janet Hernandez calls you, Cameron. You better let me know.
I will.
She is a phenomenal graphics branding strategist. She's my branding strategist. So she's the magic behind jonathanbingle.com, nakedtaxtalk.com. She's the magic behind it all. So she'll reach out to you. And yes, Janet, we talked about S corporations. I know you happen to be one, so we talk about that, and we'll make sure we get a MERP wrapped up for you. So with that, connect with Cameron. Thank you so much, Janet, for also watching my show. I dedicate my happiness to you as well. And may all of you be free from suffering, and may all of you never be separated from your happiness. Have a great night, a great morning, or whenever it is that you watch my episode.